The Nord Lead A1 is in many ways a fantastic instrument, but after only about a year of infrequent use, I've decided to sell it and get something else. So before shipping it off to a new owner, I wanted to share some of my thoughts on it, and some of my favorite sounds I created. What you're seeing and hearing in the background is just some random improvisation on some of the patches I created, and at the end, I want to give you a feel for what it's like to build a patch from scratch, so I'm going to improvise something entirely new. So I want to start with some of the positives, some of the reasons I bought the synthesizer in the first place. For one thing, the 4-part multi-temporality is actually quite helpful in modern workflows. I can send 4 different parts at once from my DAW, and they'll all play simultaneously, which means less time switching back and forth between programs. Nord has also made it very easy to map the mod wheel or velocity to almost every knob on this surface. All I have to do is hold down the wheel or velocity button, and then twist the knob that I want to be affected by that source. And if you want an extra hand-free, you can use an expression pedal in place of the mod wheel. They've also carefully selected what parameters you can access. They give you enough knobs to help you sculpt a wide variety of sounds, but without getting too complicated. There's no mod matrix, no menu diving. For the most part, what you see is what you get. And I think that made it a lot more approachable and easy to learn. But this also leads to the major downsides of the instrument. Before long, I found it too limiting. For instance, there's only one mod envelope and only 2 destinations you can send it to, and only one LFO per timbre, and 2 destinations for that as well. So aside from manually affecting things with the mod wheel, expression pedal, or velocity, there are only 2 parameters I can modulate at all: the filter cutoff, and 1 parameter for the oscillator section. Speaking of which, that oscillator section has some more frustrating limitations. In a sense, there's only 1 oscillator per voice, but many of the modes you can put it in essentially blend it with the second wave. For example, you could pick a square wave for the main oscillator, but then blend it with a sine wave that's 1 octave up. But there's a preset list of combinations, and you can only pick 1 mode for the oscillator section at a time. So for instance, if you're layering with a sine wave, you can't also use pitch or shape modulation. And while there are some pre-configured FM modes, we can't combine that with anything else either. And while there's still a lot you can do to shape a sound outside of the oscillator section, it feels far too limiting. I suppose there's still a lot of combinations of bass wave shape and ways you can modify it, but still, I want more flexibility. I want to be able to pick a couple of bass wave shapes and do shape modulation, or sync, or FM. If I could apply just 2 of these modes at once, it would expand my possibilities greatly, but the closest I could get would be layering multiple timbres using different waveforms. And I guess I could get more complex layered sounds that way, but it seems a bit tedious. I'd much rather just have more knobs for more options. Speaking of which, there are a few cases where you have to hold down Shift to access a second function, and it's not the most intuitive thing. And while I said there's no menu diving, I guess there are some settings that you have to go into a menu for, and this menu is very cryptic. I mean, the display here gives you at most 3 characters, so it was necessary to print a legend on the front of the synthesizer to explain what they all mean. Now, I won't go into the technical specifications or list out all the different components you have to work with, because that information is easy enough to find online. But what I had a hard time finding was a real user account of what it's like to use this for an extended period. So in short, it's fun to play with, you can get some great sounds out of it, and it's probably a good choice for a beginner to learn with. But if you get deep into sound design, sooner or later you'll want more. So I've sold mine and switched to an Ovation Peak. I'm probably going to miss the Nord, but I think it was the right choice to move on. Now in a moment, I'll leave you with my very last session with the Nord Lead A1, building a patch from scratch. It's going to sound a bit chaotic and messy for a while, but if you stick with me, I think I got some pretty good sounds in the end. So I hope this is helpful to some of you, and thanks for watching.